Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're leaving Italy and heading to Bulgaria. Honestly, I still can't believe this is my life sometimes. Anyway, come along with me and let's see what kind of chaos we get into this time. Firstly, I do everything at the last possible moment. So naturally, this was me 2 hours before my flight, trying to decide which heels deserve the honor of going to Bulgaria with me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, it was raining in Italy. After weeks of unbearable heat, the weather finally decided to cool down. And of course, being the dramatic person that I am, I immediately convinced myself that Italy was crying because I was leaving. And then I realized this decathlon sweatshirt was made in India. Like seriously, I'm going to India in 10 days anyway. At this point, I don't travel with India. India travels with me. One of the best things about living in Naples is that the airport is incredibly close to the city, so there was absolutely no hurry. In fact, this was me leaving home just an hour before my flight. Meanwhile, back home, airport travel requires planning, strategy, and the blessings of at least 3 family members. So, since we had so much time, we even picked up some friends along the way and just chilled. Honestly, it was nice to experience airport travel without treating it like a major life event for once. And then I finally reached the airport, feeling very proud of myself for my excellent time management skills, only to discover that my flight was delayed by 2 hours. So apparently life said, relax, you're not getting to Bulgaria that quickly. Anyway, I was flying with Wizz Air, the airline equivalent of it's so cheap, so let's not ask too many questions. So honestly, I can't even say I was surprised. I simply accepted my fate and prepared to spend the next 2 hours becoming one with the airport chairs. But then I realized that I'll be going home in just a few days, and suddenly I had a brilliant financial idea. You see, if you buy things at the airport, they don't count towards your luggage allowance. At least that's what I tell myself to justify shopping. So naturally, I started wandering around Napoli airport, which is actually quite small, to see if there was anything I could buy here instead of in Naples. At this point, I'm not shopping for souvenirs. I'm shopping strategically. Anything to save a few kilos of luggage, honestly. Anyway, while I was wandering to the airport along with what felt like half the population of Naples, I came across the shop that had practically everything you could possibly gift someone. With love from Naples, of course. And then I finally met my Italian team. I'm traveling to Bulgaria for an Erasmus Plus project, and there are 6 of us in total. It's actually pretty funny because we're supposedly the Italian team, but one of us is Indian, that's me, and another is from Ukraine. At this point, Italian team seems to be more of a state of mind than a nationality. And then finally, it was time to board the flight. I noticed there was a catalog in the seat pocket selling everything from food to cosmetics, as if I was suddenly going to think, you know what this trip to Bulgaria is missing? A new lipstick. There was also an apple. Was this the cleanest flight I've ever been on? Let's just say I've seen cleaner. But then again, when you're paying less for a flight than you would for a train ticket in Italy, I feel like expectations have to be adjusted accordingly. Seriously, I will never understand how it's cheaper to fly out of Italy than it is to travel within Italy. At this point, Wizz Air is basically a bus with wings. And of course, I was starving. I hadn't had breakfast. So I ended up having cup noodles, a Kit Kat and some water. The official meal of Asians traveling on a budget. And honestly, finding cup noodles on a flight is a luxury these days. Some airlines don't even have them, and unfortunately for me, noodles are not a want. They're a personality trait. A few hours later, we finally landed in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. Now, I know I'm Indian and probably have no right to judge airports, but come on. Let's just say Sofia Airport was not exactly love at first sight. And yes, I'm saying this very confidently because India has some really impressive airports these days. I don't know, but when you land somewhere in Europe, you expect to have that, yes, I'm in Europe feeling, right? Let's just say Sofia Airport did not give me that feeling. It felt less like the capital city's airport and more like an airport that accidentally became a capital city's airport. But anyway, we didn't stay there for long. There was already a car waiting to take us to Bansko because we're skipping Sofia this time. Although don't worry, I still got to see Sofia the way all great travelers do, through a car window. And of course, I'm going to show you that too. It was almost a 3-hour drive to Bansko, but honestly, between the window views and the excitement of being in a new country, it didn't feel that long at all. This was Sofia, just outside the airport, and I have to say, the roads were a little cracked here and there, which gave me a surprisingly familiar feeling, like a tiny bit of India had somehow made its way to Europe. But it was still beautiful in its own way. I could see Bulgarian flags everywhere, and the city felt quiet, calm, and completely unbothered by the rest of the world. And honestly, I kind of liked that. And honestly, it was a nice break from Naples. Don't get me wrong, I love Naples, but after living in a city where traffic is practically a way of life, Sofia felt incredibly peaceful. This is the capital of Bulgaria, and yet there was barely any traffic. The roads were calm, the buildings were tall, and everything just felt quiet. Not in a creepy or abandoned way, just in a everyone seems to have their life together and isn't honking every 3 seconds kind of way. And honestly, I was really enjoying it. I don't know if I believe in manifestation, but I always found this funny. Back in India, I didn't know much about Eastern Europe, but for some reason, one name always stayed with me, Sofia. Maybe because it sounds like a girl's name, maybe because I saw it in a quiz once. I don't know, but somehow I always remembered that Sofia was the capital of Bulgaria. And now here I was, driving through a city whose name had been sitting quietly in the back of my mind ever since I was a little girl in a small town in India. Life is strange like that sometimes. And I have to admit, I really wanted to get out of the car and explore Sofia right away. But unfortunately, I was here for an Erasmus Plus project, not on vacation, and getting to Bansko was the priority. Still, I made a promise to myself. I'd come back, because Sofia already felt special to me. Maybe it was because of the name, maybe because it had somehow stayed with me all these years. But now that I was finally here, I knew I couldn't leave without exploring it properly someday. And honestly, I think some cities deserve more than just a view from a car window. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I also remember that Bulgaria is considered the poorest country in the European Union. And yet here I was looking out the window at a city that felt clean, organized, and well maintained. It honestly made me a little sad, because back home we often talk about being one of the world's biggest economies, and yet there are still so many beautiful places that we struggle to preserve. I'm not comparing the two countries, every country has its own challenges, but moments like this do make you think. Sometimes it's not about how rich a country is, it's about what we choose to do with what we have. And as we got closer to Bansko, most of the team had fallen asleep, while the rest were busy laughing and goofing around in the car. Meanwhile, I was doing what I do best, staring dramatically out of the window and overthinking my entire life. There's something about being on the road in a new country that always puts me in a reflective mood, and somewhere along the way I found myself feeling incredibly grateful for all the places that life has unexpectedly taken me. And finally, we arrived in Bansko. I have to admit, Bansko felt strangely familiar to me. Maybe because it's a mountain town and growing up in the hills, places like this always feels a little like home. Of course, Bansko has its own personality. It's famous for skiing and winter sports, so everywhere you look, there's something adventurous waiting to happen. And I have to say, it was incredibly clean and well maintained. Although, and please don't cancel me for saying this, the mountains didn't really impress me. When you grow up around the Himalayas, you become a little difficult to impress in the mountain department. But overall, from what I could see through my car window, Bansko looked really cute, and the weather deserved its own appreciation post. I had just come from Naples, where it's currently trying its very best to turn everyone into a well-cooked pizza. So stepping out into Bansko felt less like arriving in Bulgaria and more like entering heaven. After surviving 40-degree weather, this cool mountain air felt like a personal gift from the universe. By the time we reached Bansko, we were starving, so the suitcases could wait. The food was great. I loved the sausages, the rice, and even the salad, which is impressive because I've never been this excited about cucumbers and tomatoes. The dessert, however, was speaking a language my taste buds did not understand. And this was the 5-star hotel I was staying in, complete with a kitchen, come dining room, come bedroom. Basically one room trying its best to do the work of 3. And this was the view from the balcony. Those are technically mountains in the distance, but as someone who grew up near the Himalayas, I'm trying very hard not to have opinions. Anyway, that's all for today. See you in the next vlog. Bye!